to the final My Two Cents with Kelly Boykin, where we talk about really winning in an MSP VMS environment. Kelly, it's been so great to have these discussions with you. And so now we kind of bring it all together. We've talked about to MSP or not to MSP. We've talked about some obstacles and challenges to overcome, some of the best practices and recipes for success, in these programs. But now, most importantly, we don't want to just be a supplier, because sometimes that can feel like even a dirty word in recruiting. We want to truly be a solver. And so kind of walk us through what you've seen of how suppliers can really evolve from just being a transactional vendor to truly being a strategic workforce partner.
Yeah, it's a great question because, as we know, the last couple of years have been a little bit tricky and there has been a lot of optimization happening. And I think, and I've said this before, just showing up and being a good supplier is table stakes, that we've got to be there. But you really want to not only protect your role with an MSP program or an MSP bigger picture, but also have opportunity where you are top of mind for them to think about you for new programs. This is when it becomes really important to add value in a different way. And that can look like a lot of things. That can be, if you're an expert in your space, you probably know as much about that customer as the MSP does. What intel and knowledge can you bring them that helps them deliver better on the customer? How can you help them identify spend that may not be coming through the program that could be coming through the program? Competitive rate information, emerging skill challenges or shortages or opportunities, and even recommending process improvements. If you work with a lot of MSP programs, sometimes you might be shy to do it, but coming to them and saying, hey, this is a challenge we're having here. We've seen it work really well when other programs have done that. So that's what true partnership is bringing information and insights that doesn't just help you get more revenue or get more orders, but helps the program more holistically. That's a true differentiator. And when you do those things, that's where they're asking you to be part of more strategic conversations. That's when they're saying, hey, we're going to launch a new project and we'd like you to be a part of it for this customer. That's when they're coming to you asking for insights and getting you in front of the customer. So there's a real payoff to that beyond it being, a good thing to do, because it really does help you position yourself more strategically in the long run with that program and with that MSP.
And if I'm an executive, seeing this, podcast, I'd be curious. Okay, what is my role? Obviously, a lot of what we've talked about is, how delivery teams and maybe middle managers are working with some of the main local stakeholders within customer MSPs. But if I'm an executive, how do you see their role evolving in this type of kind of solver world rather than just being supplier?
Meaning executives in the staffing company.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you don't get all of your information just through your team, right? Show up in those meetings, build that relationship yourself, make sure you have a presence with those MSPs and up the MSP enterprise itself. Program teams tend to know a lot about that program, but they don't know a lot about other programs, but supply chain does, and the business development organization does. And so as an executive, you can have really strategic conversations with an MSP about what they're doing, where they're going, identifying opportunities for your business down the road, and making sure that they know those success stories. They know the things that you're doing and that you're growing and evolving with them. Most MSP programs are trying to kind of survive the day, and so they're not necessarily thinking about the last great thing you did. So we do need to be reminding them, hey, remember last quarter when we brought you that rec that you didn't know about, or we solved that project problem, that sort of thing. So I think getting involved and having that involvement in this particular channel is very important at the executive level.
Right. And again, as you said, we're only as good as our last placement, but I think having that strategic dialogue, amongst executives in both parties, it can really be a game changer. Obviously we've talked a lot about AI, but just in the few years prior, direct sourcing was such a unique buzzword and kind of a new solution within the VMS MSP space. And so now in 2026, a few years into it, I'm kind of curious on, how do you see direct sourcing impacting or changing any of the landscape right now? What successes have you seen companies derive from it? And is that still a strategic path for some suppliers to provide?
Yeah, the definition of direct sourcing has morphed so much since it first came out. And I think depending on who you ask, they've got a different definition of what direct sourcing is. And that's a challenge for suppliers. It is a threat to suppliers. I mean, there's just really no way around that. MSPs have been trying to figure out how do they stay relevant and involved in that decision that a customer is making. And I think some of them have done a good job of that and others haven't. Oftentimes it just becomes an EOR play. But for suppliers, that it's a tricky one because it can route a business right around you, and so having more strategic conversations and relationships and understanding what is the role we could play in this. Can we be doing talent vetting? Can we be helping to do that database management? Can we be a good EOR that can compete with another large EOR and bring in a good value, but also a good price? So it's a tricky one, and it's a hard place for suppliers to be. I certainly wouldn't lie to anybody and say this creates a great opportunity for suppliers. It's a threat, like everything else, like platforms, like everything else that has come out. It's a challenge for us, but it's something that's probably not going away. But the definition of it has moved a lot. And so what is your engagement with that going to look like? Where can you add value?
Yeah, and I think it's only a threat, just like AI, unless we make it one. And so I think how can suppliers either coexist in that ecosystem or provide value in that space? I think is going to really define if someone's again just a vendor or is more of a strategic partner. And lastly, I think Kelly, if you were to look in a crystal ball, we just came back from the Staffing Industry Analysts Executive Forum, so maybe let's look at another year or two in the future. What do you see as maybe just like the 2 or 3 main focus areas or takeaways from our discussions that you'd recommend a staffing supplier that's getting into that MSP world?
Yeah, I think, talk to partners, whether they are consultants or offshore partners or other companies that have done this, that can help educate you and help you share with you the mistakes to avoid early on, so you don't waste a lot of time and money. Especially nobody has a lot of either one of those to waste at this particular point in time. Make that decision knowing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Once you commit to it, commit to that decision, and that's going to mean investing in those resources, those teams, the technology, the partnerships that you need to in order to deliver on them and to capture the revenue that you need to. I think understanding that this business, it's going to look a little bit different on the top line and the bottom line, but that doesn't mean it's viable in both ways, and you can really manage your operating costs in a lot of different ways, including offshore and AI and automation and other things, to deliver it in a way that still drives the profit that you need. But it's a conscious decision, and it's an investment like anything else, and I wouldn't take it lightly. Not every staffing firm should play in this space. Not every one of them needs to. So it's a very thoughtful decision that you need to go in with all of your information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, ultimately it's not always the fastest supplier. It's not necessarily the cheapest one, that always wins. I think it's really, truly those that win in this space are the ones that are thoughtful, that are smart, and they're really focusing on being a workforce partner rather than simply just a supplier. So thank you, Kelly, so much for your insight in this discussion. Hopefully it is helpful to all those that have listened throughout, and look forward to helping everybody win in the MSP space as we go forward. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me.